And, of course, when you started the company, there were challenges, weren't there? When we first started
Well,
it,
like we said, yeah, we weren't going
what
to
were they?
do work without being paid.
Exactly.
That was our main goal, was to get some resources in.
Yeah, in order to the funding.
Fundraising, and funding.
Fundraising was the main.
Convincing the funders to fund us.
Convincing them that you are viable. That was the main challenge.
Yeah.
Was it before we got funding?
3 years.
It wasn't so long, so I guess actually we're lucky in that sense, in the scheme of things,
Yeah.
Well, in terms of project funding, and it was because of Magic Paintbrush. So when that show did both commercially and critically very well, there was a funding officer, Andy Gampf, from the London Borough Grant Scheme. He saw the show. He met me afterwards and he said, David, you must apply to our fund to whatever you want to do next, try and apply for something. And I thought it was 5K, but actually when I saw the letter that you...
that was it, yes.
Okay, there's only 3K.
Yeah.
So little.
A lot in those days.
2,000 pounds.
Even in those days, it wasn't a lot.
So
It was a lot, but even in those days, it wasn't.
So there was a Hong Kong arts administrator I'd met through the Chinese Community Centre, because I was volunteering and helping the Chinatown Youth Group and try and sort of, learn drama and stuff like that. And I met Mei Yung. Mei was here at the time, and she was training as an arts administrator. And I asked Mei to help me put together a budget. So she was kind of like a freelance general manager, I guess, in the arts administrator. So Mei and we put that application into the London Borough Grant Scheme and got our first grant of 3,000. This was before we had the money coming in from Magic Paintbrush. And with that 3,000, that enabled, or maybe it was concurrent, that enabled me to do the first working progress of something called The School and I, which was inspired by a play that Zhongying Theatre had done in Hong Kong. It was based on a true story of a little girl in a New Territories village who was the only student in her school. And I asked the artistic director of Zhongying whether I could expand the story and give her an older teenage brother. And then he gets a scholarship and leaves the New Territories and comes to the UK to study. So Zhongying Theatre agreed. So the first work in progress starred Tom Wu, Benedict Wong, and Claudia Malkovich. And I was voices off stage. I was live percussionist off stage. I shared stage management duties with somebody else. I produced it along with Mei.
Yeah.
So that was the very first Yellow Earth work in progress show, and we did it at St. Martin's in the Field, in the crypt downstairs. That's right. And then Kath Hamilton.
St. Martin's, Kumiko and Andrew. I've got some of the notes from the minutes of a budget meeting. So we had a £1,600 shortfall. And Seung Wee was going to be consultant advisor. I think we brought her in as a general manager.
Right.
And the cast was going to be Tom Wu, Benedict Wong, Benedict W, and Claudia Malkovich.
Yeah.
And the stage manager was going to be Bella Bingham.
That's right.
And then she got ill. And then we have leaflets ready for tomorrow. Benedict will get return fee to Manchester, £23. And there was...
This is Benedict Wong.
£400 was going to be the amount spent on publicity, mailing out and call-outs. £400, that's quite a lot.
There you go.
Am I allowed a short venture of that?
And then Volker, for some reason, actually gave us a bit less than we hoped. And that meant that we had to reduce everyone's fees.
There you go. So amazing. So this is the show.
School and I.
So School and I.
Can you do that again?
And a link connection with Asia as well, because that idea of these characters and the storyline, etc., wouldn't have happened if the original School and I hadn't happened in Hong Kong. Kath Hamilton from the Arts Council, she saw that production. She had tears in her eyes afterwards. And she said, David, you must tour this show and, apply to the Arts Council. So that's the first time. And I said, well, we have been applied to the Arts Council for project funding for these various play readings. We'd been turned down every time. And then she said, well, with this show, you must apply and you must tour. So it was thanks to Kath's encouragement that then Mei Yong and I, we put in our application, advised and, consulting these guys and with their input and support. But it was Mei and I kind of putting that in the application. And then we got our first grant, which allowed us to employ Leila Yankovic. She had a freelance arts management company with Shanine Bethina. So Leila was our temporary part-time project manager for that show. And she tried to sell it, and the school and I didn't sell because people thought it was for a kid. It was a kids show, but actually it dealt with quite adult themes: coming out, discovering your sexuality, dealing with racism, migration, all these things. So it was kind of a rites of passage, and so. After getting that grant, eventually I changed the name to New Territories because that's where the character came from. It was from the New Territories in Hong Kong. It was also exploring new spiritual, psychological, emotional territory for the character, for the main character, which Tom played, and that's why it was rebranded. And then New Territories actually didn't tour until the spring of 1997. And that was at the same time that the Magic Paintbrush was also touring in spring of 1997 across the country. So that was the first show we did they were all freelance East and Southeast Asian actors. So it was Adrian Pang from Singapore, Paul Courtney Hugh from the UK, and Michelle Lee, who's Malaysian from Malaysia, but based here. That went to Hong Kong and Phil sang. And our very first show, John Tran was our part-time general manager at the time. And we managed to be so economic with production costs and everything else. We managed to send that company to the Hong Kong Fringe Festival, our very first show. We went to Hong Kong, and that was fantastic. We toured the UK, and then also managed to go to Hong Kong, which is unheard of. Yeah. New Territories went on to be Time Out Critics' Choice. So when we played in London at the beginning, at the Oval House, we were, very small audiences. And in those days, because there was no social media, as soon as you were Time Out Critics' Choice, there were queues around the block. It was fantastic. So from week 2, it was completely sold out. And it's New Territories that put us on the map in terms of, getting funding and the Arts Council taking us seriously, that we could do something of substance. I remember the review said, this is a kind of fringe theatre you just do not want to miss. And it was glowing. So, so sorry to be really egotistical, but it was that show that actually, launched the company. And if it hadn't been successful, we wouldn't have then got project funding either the year after, the year after, hopefully. So it was kind of...
And like you say, cultivating the relationships. And and then we also had Isabel Horson, who was diversity officer.
Exactly.
And she was a big fan of the work and of he did. So that really helped.
Yeah, it was very useful because she was quite a high up officer at the Arts Council then. And, she really supported us and called us in for meetings to say, look, we would love to support you and so forth. Yeah, exactly. Izzy Horson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.